Okay, so ancient Rome. The torture methods they came up with when they really wanted to make someone suffer are genuinely disturbing. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is humanity at its absolute worst. But it's history, and honestly, I think people should know about it. Let me walk you through 5 of the most brutal torture methods ancient Rome actually used. And I'm warning you right now, number 2 is going to mess you up. When I was researching this, I had to stop and just... Anyway, starting with number 5, the furca. So the furca was basically a big wooden fork that they'd force over your neck and shoulders, and then they'd tie your hands to it so you're walking around in this permanently uncomfortable position. Now, that doesn't sound that bad until you realize they made you walk through the streets for hours, sometimes days, in front of everyone. But here's where it gets worse. While you're walking around with this thing on your neck, people are just beating you. Random citizens. They'd throw rocks, hit you with sticks, spit on you. It was encouraged. You're essentially a public punching bag, and you can't defend yourself because your arms are tied to this wooden fork above your head. The Romans loved this because it served 2 purposes: punishment for you and entertainment for everyone else. Public spectacle. That's kind of Rome's whole thing, actually. Everything had to be a show. The painful part isn't just the physical damage, it's the exhaustion. Your shoulders are burning, your neck is screaming, you can't rest, you can't sleep. Some people died from it, just from the exhaustion and the beatings, not even the actual torture itself, just wearing down. Number 4, crucifixion. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, obviously, we all know about crucifixion, but do you actually know how it worked? Because it's way worse than what you see in movies. First off, you're not just nailed up there and you die. That's not how it works. The whole point of crucifixion was to make death as slow and agonizing as possible. We're talking days sometimes, days of hanging there. Here's what actually kills you: asphyxiation. When you're hanging by your arms, your chest cavity compresses, right? So you can't breathe properly. The only way to get air is to push yourself up using your legs, which means putting pressure on the nails through your feet. So you're constantly making this choice: suffocate or push up on nails driven through your bones. And you do this over and over. Push up, gasp for air, collapse back down. Push up, breathe, collapse. For hours. Sometimes they'd break your legs so you couldn't push up anymore, and then you'd just suffocate. That was considered mercy. Oh, and before they even crucified you, they made you carry your own cross through the city while people beat you, after you'd already been whipped nearly to death. So by the time you're actually nailed up there, you're already half dead from blood loss and exhaustion. The Romans crucified thousands of people. Thousands. After the Spartacus rebellion, they crucified 6,000 slaves along the Appian Way. One every 35 meters for 120 miles, just as a warning. Can you imagine traveling that road? Just bodies everywhere, dying slowly for days. Anyway, number 3, the brazen bull. So this one's ancient, actually predates Rome, comes from ancient Greece, but the Romans loved it so much they kept using it. And when I say this is creative evil, I mean it. Picture a hollow bronze bull, about life-sized. Beautiful craftsmanship, actually. They'd open a door in the side, shove you inside, seal it shut, and then light a fire underneath. Now you're being slowly roasted alive inside a metal oven. But here's the sick part, and this is what really shows you the mindset of the people who designed this. The bull had a series of tubes and pipes inside that would convert your screams into sounds that resembled a bull bellowing. So to everyone watching outside, it just sounds like a bull making noise, not a human being literally cooking to death. The guy who invented it, Perilius, he presented it to a tyrant named Phalaris as a gift. And Phalaris was so impressed, or maybe so disturbed, that he tested it by putting Perilius himself inside. First victim of his own invention. There's something almost poetic about that, except it's horrifying. The psychological torture of this is what kills me. You're trapped in complete darkness. The metal's getting hotter and hotter. You can't escape. You're breathing superheated air that's burning your lungs from the inside. And nobody outside can even hear your actual screams. They just hear a bowl. Some versions of this would let them control how hot it got, so they could keep you right at the edge of death for as long as they wanted. Not hot enough to kill you quickly, just hot enough to cause maximum agony. Okay, halfway through here, and I just want to say, if you're one of the 11 people subscribed to this channel, thank you. Seriously. I know this is dark content, but I appreciate you sticking around for these deep dives into history's worst moments. You're the real ones. Thank you so much. All right, number 2, and I warned you about this one. Damnatio ad bestias. Condemnation to beasts. So you know how we talked about Rome loving public spectacles? This is that taken to its absolute extreme. They would throw condemned criminals into the arena, the Colosseum, the Circus Maximus, wherever, with wild animals, lions, bears, leopards, wild dogs. And the animals would just tear them apart in front of thousands of people. Families would bring their kids to watch this. They'd eat snacks while watching humans get ripped to pieces. But it gets worse. So much worse. Sometimes they wouldn't just throw you in there. They'd get creative with it. They'd stage mythological scenes. I'm serious. They'd dress you up as a character from mythology and then recreate your mythological death using real animals. There's an account, and I had to read this 3 times because I couldn't believe it, of them dressing a criminal as Orpheus, the musician who could charm animals. And then they released wild animals that, let's just say, obviously were not charmed, and they just mauled him to death. The crowd loved it. Historical accuracy through actual murder. Or they'd crucify you. Yeah, crucify you first, and then release bears to maul you while you're still nailed to the cross. Or they'd tie you to a post and have wild dogs attack you. Some accounts mention them sewing people into animal skins and then releasing hunting dogs that were trained to attack those specific animals. And here's what really makes this number 2 on the list. They did this regularly. This wasn't rare. This was standard entertainment. Thousands of people died this way. And it wasn't quick. Animal attacks aren't quick. You're conscious for a lot of it. The worst part? The absolute worst part? Sometimes the animals weren't even that aggressive. They'd starve them first, for days. Make them desperate enough to attack humans. Because a well-fed lion might just ignore you, and that's not entertaining enough. I'm sorry, I know this is dark, but this actually happened. This was normal to them. Okay, deep breath. Number 1, Poena Kulae, the penalty of the sack. This was specifically reserved for parricides, people who killed their parents or close family members. And the Romans considered this the worst crime you could possibly commit. So they came up with what might be the most psychologically disturbing execution method ever devised. They would sew you into a leather sack, but you're not alone in there. They'd put you in with a dog, a rooster, a snake, and a monkey, live animals. Then they'd seal the sack and throw the whole thing into a river. Now think about what's happening in that sack. You're drowning. The animals are drowning. Everything in there is panicking, thrashing, trying to survive. The dog's biting, the rooster's clawing, the snake's constricting, the monkey's scratching. You're all fighting each other in complete darkness while the sack sinks and water starts seeping in. The symbolism here is what makes it so disturbing. Each animal represented something. The dog represented shamelessness, the rooster represented impiety, the snake represented evil, and the monkey, well, monkeys were considered unnatural parodies of humans. So you're literally being forced to confront symbolic representations of your crime while dying. And drowning isn't quick. You'd be conscious in that sack for minutes. Minutes of absolute chaos and terror and pain, knowing exactly how you're going to die, unable to see anything, unable to escape, just feeling everything around you trying to kill you. Sometimes they didn't even use a river. They'd just seal the sack and leave it in the sun. So you'd suffocate slowly while these animals are still in there with you, also dying. I can't even imagine the sounds. The first recorded use of this was 98 BC. A guy named Publicius Malleolus killed his mother, and they used this on him, and they kept using variations of it for centuries. So there you have it, 5 torture methods from ancient Rome that show you just how creative humans can get when it comes to inflicting suffering. And look, I know this is heavy content. I know it's disturbing, but I think it's important to remember this stuff because it reminds us how far we've come, and also how easily we could slide back if we're not careful. These weren't monsters doing this. These were regular people, regular Roman citizens who thought this was not just acceptable, but entertaining. That's what scares me about it. The capacity for cruelty is just, it's always been there. Anyway, that's it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Leave a comment if you want me to cover more historical stuff, or if there's a specific time period you're interested in. And yeah, see you next time.